We have more Bibia Quabashon Cosodia, Bagana, politics, a Venezuela. Should be as a half a year, no about you like a share, subscribe to the channel, and send a political trending news. We are a country called from Arabiano, a Ghana politics Venezuela, and a position for native for Yaja Penny, say the Bremo. And a political highway is on a semi-brave and as well. Cotton 70 benefits, see, a public committee, and a name say when you need to see no Obsusa and some to see Ghana memo for a person Mubusa and as a Ghana memo for a questions that in here on to see a public committee and as Omujina or Emma Ghana for Nina as a see an Omubusa a ECG for and a financial ministers near the Omuye about Mamma MPP and Mona Cia, drew ECG for Swa, a ECG for Sicano Medina Enges Kakatuakrana, a public committee no boss near Bree Panibu Funonsia, or Chimachi Mobium Cia, a scam must spend or Mudio Munishi Catcher, Nassiciano, Waka section law, a 641, say Obeface, a attorney general for prosecution and Yas of Ketuakra. It was for Yanjobi Brown Ramos, yes, so be Brown Sumri, a Dubik Mahama, and then call for Omoho Abe Jamie, as attorney general no this time around own here a investigation and as own here a evidence because evidence no a public committee for na dominate and as dominate evidence na about this year no own here share a prosecution na so the more we for enjoy be brand so mommy uncle nkoti the public committee no e catch a Dubik Mahama and the former a ECG bosses no we do be asset na ha and I'm doing this
Bank of Africa and the National Petroleum Authority. We are going to discuss the ECG. Yes, you heard me, the ECG. And I know this is not the first time you are hearing about ECG. ECG, it looks like every year when the Public Accounts Committee or the Auditor General's report is released, there is a whole portion for ECG. This time we hear about 180 million budget overrun. What it means that monies intended to be spent have been exceeded by 180 million without any prior approval. Let's see let's watch the video on the Public Accounts Committee when this was being addressed.
9.3 million was your budget, but you spent 12.2. Staff fuel. Hey, did they drive around the world? Budget was 2.8. and you spent 3.6 million. Communication expenses, ECG. Their budget was 4.2, but you spent 7.9 million. Consultancy, budget was 40 million, but you spent 58.6 million. All these you did it on your own without even board approval. Industrial relation, your budget was 2 million, but you spent 13 million. Stakeholders' expenses, your budget was 3.1 million, and you spent 49 million. And you want to increase our tariffs. Publicity. Your budget was 5.7 and you spent 21.8 million. Professional fees and subscription. You were supposed to spend 731,000 cedis and you spent 1.5 million. Overseas travel expenses, you were supposed to spend 14 million and you spent 29.8 million. Call center expenses, you were supposed to spend 23.5 million, you spent 29.3 million. So budget approval was for 144 million, you spent 333 million. That's excess of 189.2 million. This shows financial indiscipline. And the recommendation over here is that sanctions under Section 96 of the Public Financial Management Act 216, Act 921 should be applied to the officers involved. We also urge management to efficiently monitor and control the company's expenses. CEO, those managers who were involved, I'm recommending that they need to face the Attorney General for prosecution.
Well, thank you for staying tuned with us. And I mean, if you heard what was being announced, you marvel. If we have all this money in this country, and we still keep going for loans and grants, and all these monies is going waste. And this is not the first we are hearing from the Auditor General's statement. This is from the report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of Ghana, public boards, corporation, and other statutory institutions for the period ended. Okay, so this is ended 31st December 2024. So technically, this was for that period. Now, just ECG, one institution overruns its budget. And please, if you can display the infographics so we can actually see what was budgeted and what was spent, so we can see. So my team can help with the infographics. Yes. For foreign training, we were supposed to spend 31 million. We spent 91 million. We overspent foreign training by 60 million. Is it a case that people who are not supposed to, had not been budgeted to train, were sent on training, or per diem all of a sudden ballooned, or people were accompanying to go who were not supposed to be part? What really went? Or they were all of a sudden the training institutions increased their facilitation fee. Cleaning expenses, 2.8 million was budgeted for cleaning. It ended in 10.4 million. 2.8 was for cleaning, and then 10.4. Honorarium expenses, that one, it looks like we were spared a bit, 3.8 to 4.6. So just a bit of, let's say 0.8 million, 800,000. Hotel expenses from 9.3 million budget. What was expensed is 7.9. 2.8 to 7.9. We all know that fuel prices rocketed, but it did not go up by 100% or 200%. So even if fuel prices went up by 100%, we are looking at 5.6. But this is 7.9. Communication expenses, 4.2 was budget, 7.9 is what was spent. Consultancy expenses, 40 million, 58 is what was spent. Industrial relations, 2 million. 13 million was spent on industrial relations. So, I mean, I would want to even, maybe if we'll have to find out the difference between IR and communication expenses, because for me, anyway, we'll talk about that one. The most ridiculous one for me is the stakeholder expenses. Who are these stakeholders? Now we move from 3.1 million, and we actually spent 49 million. 3.1 was budgeted, and 49 was what we expensed. Professional fees and subscriptions, 731,000 was budgeted, 1.5 was spent. Overseas travel expenses, 14 million, and then 29.8. There's foreign training already, and then there's overseas travel expenses. There's call center expenses. They exceeded by, I think, 5.8. And then publicity expenses. So there's publicity, there's communication expenses, there is industrial relation, there's stakeholder expenses. All of these ones, Kofi, this was your government.
Yes.
Many a times, and we were saying this before we came on, many a times, and I heard the chairman for the Public Accounts Committee directing that the officers in charge of this should be held accountable. Many often, we start doing this, and all of a sudden, a politician is thrown into the mix, and then the real people who are doing this, because I tell people all the time that politicians come and go every 4 years, or tops 8 years. The people that stay put every time are the so-called technocrats and the civil servants. And if this corruption keeps happening, we cannot always say that it's just the politician.
Yeah, I think we've made some progress as far as legislation to fight corruption is concerned. If you look at President Rawlings's era, the 1992 to 2000, we didn't have a lot of laws. We didn't have the Procurement Act. So people were doing all sorts of procurements on their own, you know, without recourse to any laid-down processes. We didn't have the Internal Audit Agency Act. We didn't have the Money Laundering Act. Most of these acts were passed during the President Akuffo era, you know, because we copied from other developed countries, established institutions, and so on. And I think this delayed because of the many military interventions we had post-Akroma and the Second Republic era. So we didn't have parliament, you know, to give us the benefit of getting the laws to see to the, you know, use of public funds judiciously and all that. President Mills and President Mahama also came to add up to some of these laws. The PFM Act, for instance, the Public Financial Management Act, was passed during President Mahama's time, 2016. You know, so we've done well as far as the passage of the laws are concerned. The problem has always been the implementation. That is why we need to applaud committees like the Public Accounts Committee who are seeing to the implementation of the PFM Act. The ECG issue, I'm looking at it from this angle, you know, because they operate as a company limited by guarantee. Sometimes they forget their government enterprise, you know, and when you read the PMF Act and compare it to the Companies Act, sometimes, or not even sometimes, I think those who operate under the Companies Act are not even, you know, supposed to go to PPA for their procurement. They are not gazetted. So GIHOC, ECG, and a lot of these state-owned companies, TDC and the rest, they don't go to PPA. You know, so they operate as semi-autonomous state agencies, like the way the universities operate. And sometimes they forget that they are, even though they are running limited liability companies, the companies are wholly owned by government. And as far as the company is owned by government, the PFMA Act applies. And what does it say about the companies, you know, bound by the Companies Act? You know, they are supposed to prepare annual budget estimates in consultation with the ministry, their mother ministries and the Ministry of Finance. Do they do it? Sometimes they don't. They are supposed to spend only within approved budget appropriations, even though they are companies, you know. But because they are operating as companies, ECG, we are a company, we don't go to PPA, we don't do this, we don't do that. Sometimes they think they are private companies operating on their own. And also because they generate their own revenue. Because if you are getting funds from the consolidated fund, it is not easy. Everybody is competing for allocation of resources, road contractors and all that. But the energy ministry agencies, because they have their own IGF, because of the services they provide, whether it is MP, whether it is BOSS, whether it is ECG, whether it is Ghana Gas, they sell something or provide one service or the other, whether it is regulatory, like MPA, from which they get IGF. They have a lot of resources. And I think it is for this reason that, I don't know if it was during President Mahama or Akuffo Addo's time, that they tax every SOE to send their excess funds to a central account at the BOG.
The first Mahama.
The first Mahama account. So that the state will have the benefit of getting all those resources. Because you have money sitting in the books of some of these companies. MPA, cash, big. Boss, if you read their financial statements and their assets and all that. Meanwhile, other parts of the economy need money to function. And because these companies generate their own resources, they think they can use it any way they want. They are supposed to report quarterly to the Ministry of Finance, even though they are limited liability companies. Because they are wholly owned by the state, they are supposed to file quarterly reports. Do they do it? Who is supposed to ensure that there's oversight? The various respective parliamentary committees in Parliament, the Finance Committee, they are supposed to ensure that these things are done. You know, they are supposed to be audited by the Auditor General's report. That is why their report has appeared in Parliament. You know, and sanctions are supposed to be applied when they flout these laws, you know. So it is good we are doing some of these exercises to ensure that companies, which fall under the government are treated as state-owned enterprises. And it was also for this reason that President Akuffo set up SIGA, which is the State Insurance and Governance Authority. Because before SIGA, most of the regular government agencies, who are under the Public Services Commission, they operated like regular state institutions, the FDAs, the NCAs, and what have you, whose chief executive officers are confirmed by the Public Services Commission. But the state-owned enterprises, the joint ventures, and those that we have shares in, like the, what's the new hotel? The former Ambassador Hotel, what's the name now? Okay. No, the one in Kumasi. Lancaster.
Okay, Lancaster.
We have about 40% shares in Lancaster. So it's a state-owned enterprise. So the SIGA brought on board the goals and all these companies that the states have interests in it. So even if it is 1% interest, the state has a say in it. And the SIGA Director General is supposed to collect reports from all these state agencies to make sure that they are going by the PFM Act and they report through SIGA to Parliament. But more often than not, they do not send the reports because they feel bigger than the State Interest and Governance Authority Director General. Because if somebody is sitting at MPA, ECG, the books they are managing, their balance sheet, the size of their companies and the funds they control, sometimes it's more than bringing 5 ministries together.
But, I mean, I get you. But for me, and these are all, like you said, they are oversight responsibility that's supposed to be done, is not being done.
Yes.
But my concern is what again, I mean, you've spoken about moral, and maybe we might end up going your moral route this morning, but why would any CEO and his officers want to 100% overspend without wanting to seek approval?
Yeah, so I think it's a culture of impunity. And I was going there when I was comparing the operations of the companies, the funds they control. Because the ECGMD is more powerful than sometimes putting 5 ministers. The Chief Tenancy Minister, how much funds does he get? The Environment Minister, how much funds does he get? It's less than 10% of the funds that ECG control. But the fact that you control a lot of funds doesn't mean you should not, go by the laws of the country. We have a PFM. That's why I started by saying that before, President Akuffo's time, we didn't have a lot of these laws in the public sector. He started, President Mills, Mahama, and then even Akuffo added SIGA, PFM Act, and all that, But let's see to the implementation. The fact that you control a lot of resources as a state agency doesn't mean, and there's a lot of politics. Some of these state agency CEOs are more powerful than their ministers because of the funds they control, and sometimes because of their relationship with the appointing authority. And there's a friction sometimes in some of that. That is why there's a need for the independence of the legislature. But the independence of the legislature, which I have spoken about, there are issues there. We don't pay our lawmakers well. I mean, we cannot copy the Singapore model. When they decided to fight corruption, graft, and all that, they paid their MPs and public sector workers well. They pegged their salaries to the Fortune 500 companies, of this world to ensure that if a technocrat is doing so well in the private sector, that same person will be comfortable enough to come in the Singaporean parliament to pass laws to ensure that he's checking corruption and working for the state.
In our system, we have enough evidence to show that those who are even paid better are the better fraud thieves.
So they didn't end there. When they paid them well and elevated their conditions of service, emoluments and all that, then they enacted laws to ensure that if you go beyond this, sometimes the punishment is capital punishment. That is what the East they have done.
Right.
And they have achieved it. So let's start by empowering our parliamentarians. Because if an MP is taking 12,000 cedis home, and because our society is very weak, the people are vulnerable and they depend a lot on politicians, how long can he go with 12,000 cedis? He needs to be on a board or get one ministerial appointment or the other. So if our constitutional review, we are going to say that MPs should be independent. They shouldn't be part of the executives. People are advocating for all that. They should just focus on their oversight role, enacting laws and all that, so that we have a strong arm of government aside the judiciary and then the executive. Then we should ensure that we pay them well so that they wouldn't have to depend on the executives. Because as it is now, they are all surviving on the executive. And I pity the current MPs in the NDC administration, because these are record numbers. And if you hear the boss some of them are on, I wonder how they are even going to get resources to cater for their constituencies. And this is what breeds corruption.
Right. So, Prof, welcome back. Prof. Hello, Prof, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can clearly hear you.
Right, welcome back. Prof, so this is not the first we are hearing of the Public Accounts Committee. I mean, almost every year we watch, we observe, we hear of the things that have been uncovered, losses, and we keep hearing this over and over again. They give sanctions, and it never seems that whatever sanctions they are giving is strong enough to prevent the next year from repeating same. Is it being effective?
Very ineffective, I should say. Well, when you look at the figures, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that an organization having a budget of 144 million doesn't make sense. And something must happen. You know, over the years, like you said, the Public Accounts Committee will say it and interrogate people. At the end of the day, they write their reports. We don't hear anything. Sometimes they tell you go and say no more. And you cannot see the seriousness with which that Public Accounts Committee must act. So I think that for this one, or the chairman, when he says that the age must go to court. You see, over the years, we've been talking about corruption every year, and after every change of government, we hear corruption. The cry about corruption is always so loud. But how many times have we been able to prosecute people successfully for corruption and corruption-related offenses? We are a joke as a country, I think. You know, if we are talking about Ghana's underdevelopment, Ghana's problems is mainly the issue of corruption. Nothing else. Because sometimes you cannot imagine how certain figures are meant, and we are told that these figures are corruption-related figures. People have stolen money. People have done when the Public Accounts Committee says, you know, they mostly look at the Auditor General's report. If we were to trace all of them and percentages of the so-called stolen money or misappropriated funds and all of that, we could do something as a country. No,
Prof,
you see,
Prof, can you hear me?
We go to the IMF.
Hello, Prof, can you hear me?
And how much money do we borrow? We go for loans, organization. Hello?
Can you hear me, Prof?
Hello, can you hear me? I can hear you.
Yeah, we seem to have a bit of a delay from your end, and so we'll work on it and get back to you so you continue from where you are.
All right. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so just give me a minute. I'll come back to you. Doc, so for me, my question is the Auditor General infractions have come
Kupon show be our bready rich media or doing pepper. So it'll be as I know me Ghana politics avenue. So Ukusu our rich media and what like it, what subscribe to the channel. So when you are Mr. Yenin and Mamma, I hanum and brave mam coins and mammas in a minute, the very moose, you know, I had Dubik Mahama and Omo Abba 7 a scat Pudua or Mobidino, then this Kaketua cry, as I say, you know, a public committee as a moment at the Amo on the Attorney General, so and Mobidini, no, 180 million in our 4 months as here, and as I'm Kitokra, and they are held to be dealt with. I put for all and some Kaibia, they would say, you know, Pasha comment section, home, I'm saying, yeah, you bet me, I didn't wink down there. Aha, and a Jumano, and as a ha, and a Ghana politics avenue, so I catch me some from Munsi, Macram.